mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 46. Yes, we've lasted that long, and so have you. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst and hoops player, an infamous rapper. Yes, that's infamous, not infamous. Our resident influencer and IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. And as a reminder, remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, and check us out and 70 of your famous friends on the Huddle, or as we affectionately call it, the Cuddle podcast. One of those friends will actually be joining us this week from the great state of Utah. We're going to be previewing what to expect from our clash with the Titans from the West. We'll also be talking a lot of recruiting. UCF, I told you last week to grab your Snuggies, have a drink, and settle down. UCF signed 7 recruits this past week. And depending on which recruiting site you go by, 7 total 4 stars for this recruiting class and number 16 in the nation. So excited to talk to you a little bit about that. In addition to that, we do have a hoops basketball player that is exciting to have on campus. We'll talk a little listener love and give a shout out to some of our new listeners. And Alan may grace us with an Oxymoronic stat of the week. We never know. It's always a crapshoot. But Josh will always have a sometimes funny fact of the week. So excited about that. And without further ado, unfortunately, we don't have Nobra this week. He is here. He is producing. We are having some technical difficulties. So instead of the Nobra hair flip, we are all going to give you one in his honor. So let's start the show with a hey now. And Ben Stout, give us that infamous hair flip, man.
What's up?
All right, what's
it's
up?
It's not really moving anywhere. It's more like a head flip. But what's up, guys, man? It's good to join y'all. And we're ready to get this show started, man.
Awesome. Yeah, excited to have you back this week. Let's go with Alan. Alan actually has enough hair to give us a hair flip under the hat. So let's see what he comes up with.
There we go.
Hey now. There we go. All right. I'm excited about that one. Good, man. Glad to have you back this week. We don't have Trey Neal, but we do have Josh Lazar. So last but not least, but always last, Josh Lazar.
Soon a couple weeks off for the infamous Doc Sorter's vocal strain. Can you get with this? It's legit. Shouldn't even spit this dish, but a quick gate probably will be harmless, right? Who am I, sir? A fan am I? What's the fuss with the muss hanging lines of fies? Is the true you repping for the SLC? November 29th, I'll see him after the turkey. Laser guided.
All right. That one was good. I like the ending there. A little custom for our guest. And let's see the hair flip, Josh. Oh, that was a bobblehead. What was that? That was literally a bobblehead. Guys, if you aren't watching on YouTube and you're listening on any of the platforms that we're on, he literally looked like he had a seizure going on there for a second. I don't know what was going on. But
it's not shellacked on, but
that's okay. You've got the hair and the beard, and I mean, something could be moving. Who knows? All right, we tried. Josh tried, but good choice. Oh, wow. He beat me for that. Okay. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead from the aforementioned college huddle, where, remember, we've got 70-plus team represented from all over the country and their podcast. So if you have an interest in learning about another team, you can go check us out there. But Cameron from the Utah Man podcast, the one, the only, the Utah man, Cameron. Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? The hair flips, the bobblehead. I can't beat that. I don't know.
They don't do hair flips in Utah? Come on, bro. You gonna give it a try? Give us a headphone flip, baby. There we go. All right, that's good. That's good. That's good enough for a Head and Shoulders commercial. I like it. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us as part of the series to introduce Knight Nation to the new folks that are joining us this year from the Pac. We've had Arizona, we've had Arizona State, and now we have Utah. Some of Knight Nation is booing and hissing at the moment. Others are cheering. I'm excited that you're here. So let's talk a little bit about the Utah Utes and what we should expect from you guys this year.
Yeah, no, let's dive into it. Social media has been a buzz between these two fan bases. It's, the conference was looking at that when they set that game up.
On Black Friday.
Right after Thanksgiving. They were watching social media for that.
Oh, 100%. And, everybody's been talking about who the new rivals are going to be, right? The way that I see it and the way UCF fans have moved, kind of like Utah fans did. You guys came up from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. We've moved every 8 years. So realignment is not a new thing for us. So when we talk about rivalries, we tend to set our sights on people that are successful. So obviously Utah, OSU, those are who we're looking at. They're trying to stick us with Houston, but Houston's not really been a problem. So play on words. They're just not it. They're not that thing. So we're excited about Utah. We'd like to introduce everybody to if I need to say it exactly. We want to introduce everybody to the game day experience to kind of start. Like UCF fans, we're kind of rowdy. It's a younger fan base. Average age is mid-30s for our fan base because it's a newer university. 1963 was our founding. Tell us a little bit about what UCF fans should expect from a Utah game day experience. Are there any traditions? Some places they have clackers, some throw tortillas. Is there anything at Utah that UCF fans should expect?
Yeah, so definitely game days at Utah it's a big deal. Over 58 consecutive sellouts for Icicle Stadium. It's loud. Fans show up. Tailgating scene. Now, I know we're not in the South, and I'm not going to try to compare us to how you guys do it down there, because I know that's a whole different world in tailgating. But as far as tailgating, especially on the West Coast, on the west side of the United States, it's top notch. The tailgate lot's right across the street. They open it up about 5 p.m. So if the game's on Saturday, they open up at 5 on Friday. So there's fans there. It's packed. Fans are there from the night before, stay up all night, just tailgating up until game time. So it's a great atmosphere. The stadium holds about 51,000. It gets loud. The south end zone used to be kind of open on the sides. And during the 2020 season, they kind of closed that off now. So it's a complete circle. So it gets really loud. There's no tortillas. There's no cowbells, anything like that. It doesn't make a lot of noise, but flags are actually a big thing. People with the big poles, like the golf ball retriever poles, all that. So it's fun. It's a fun atmosphere. You mentioned the ages of your fans. For us, it's all across the spectrum. With Utah kind of being more of a family state, you're going to get a family with younger kids. You're going to get older people. You're going to get college students. So you're going to get a variety of different people there. Utah is known for the LDS religion. Yeah, BYU to the south of us. Well, for Utah, it's going to be about 50-50 for as far as that goes. But overall, it's a great experience. It's a lot of fun.
Right. What about college bars? Are there any college bars close to the stadium? I'm assuming the the stadium is close to campus or on campus. I'm not even sure. I believe it's on campus. Is it not?
Yeah, it's on campus. Yeah. Yeah.
So any good
stadium,
college bars that people should check out, or any locations that they should check out while they're visiting?
yeah. So there's not college bars per se that are there. It is a dry campus. So if you go to the tailgate lot, it definitely will be flowing, and it's a very open, friendly atmosphere. So you can just walk wherever you want in there and join any tailgate party. Everyone's going to welcome. No issues there. So the stadium is dry. Outside of that, though, there's a couple places nearby. Nothing like really stands out as far as like a quote unquote college bar. There is a place called the Pie, which is on campus, which is the pizzeria. Great pizza, and that's a lot of fans will hit that up right before games. But yeah, it's not, again, because of where we are location wise, you're just not going to find that here, to be honest with you.
So you mentioned, the fans being sort of welcoming and friendly. Do they get heated at all? We're in the South, so we kind of get used to fans that get into the game, and when they get into the game, they get a little rowdy. Obviously, if it's a dry stadium, that probably helps with that. UCF's recently, it used to be restricted to the club areas, but now alcohol is sold throughout the stadium. So it can get a little gnarly when you get younger folks and a little alcohol involved. By and large, most UCF fans are friendly and welcoming and all of that stuff. But, you get idiots everywhere you go. You just need to watch an NFL game. How's that experience? What's that experience like for Utah fans? Do they get rowdy? Do they get really into it? Like, are they going to start screaming? I mean, what does that experience look like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's idiots everywhere, right? I think for the most part, there's not going to be problems. There aren't going to be issues, especially for visiting teams. Now, I know BYU fans are going to disagree. They're going to say that they got beer poured all over them. See, I can't even say it because it doesn't even happen. They get spit on, all that nonsense. But by and large, we've been. Good golly, I've been a season ticket holder for over a decade now. I've never had an issue. I've never seen an issue. In fact, I've seen more issues between Utah fans than a Utah fan and an opposing team, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Well, sounds like it'll be an exciting environment with with welcoming crowds for the tailgating scene, and then go inside. Is there any like specialty that Utah fans like to make, like when they're tailgating? Is there a special drink, a food or something? We do, different things. You've got the Citronaut that's specific to us. We've got specific alcoholic beverages that are sold on campus that are UCF themed. We've got foods as well. Is there anything like that on Utah's campus besides the pie that people should check out or get?
Yeah, I think definitely so. A big thing, a tradition kind of in the tailgate lot is to do a ski shot. So you get a ski for snow skiing, and you got your shots on there, and everyone takes a shot at the same time off the ski.
Shotski.
That's kind of like the big thing. For those younger folks, but definitely that's kind of a tradition to get yourself into Utah spirits.
All right. So when I make it up there, I'm definitely doing a ski shot or a shot ski, however you want to call it. I'm definitely doing that. All right. Let's shift gears a little bit. Thank you for sharing a little bit about what UCF fans should expect. Let's talk a little bit about realignment. So it obviously impacted everybody quite a bit. It impacted Utah, a few years ago going to the PAC. And now with the PAC's dissolution, there was this competition of survival of the fittest kind of thing going on between the Big 12 and the PAC. And after Texas and OU left, the thought was that, the Big 12 would be the big loser here. But it didn't quite turn out that way. What was Utah's view, as a fan base on realignment? We've heard and seen things, vocal fans on Twitter talking about how they didn't want to be associated with the Big 12. What was the collective thought process going there? Was everybody just panicking because, then Oregon, they'd been not shy about Phil Knight looking for greener pastures, in the same way with Washington. So what was the thought process as all of this was unfolding?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, right? I think really to get a sense of it, Utah's been wanting to be in the Pac. It was Pac-10 back then, for decades. And so while they were in the WAC, while they were in the Mountain West, that's the teams they were scheduling. Football, basketball, that's the teams that they were, trying to bring their programs up and their facilities up, kind of that benchmark of where they wanted to be. And so just decades of wanting to be there. And then they finally get invited. They're in there, kind of struggle at first, kind of find their footing, find their way. And then, on the top, one of the top 3, top 4 teams in the Pac-12 the last couple of years. I think that's where I think Utah fans were excited, because it was a conference they've wanted to be in for so long, all their tradition, all the history, and now they're part of it. They're making that history. And then, as you mentioned, Texas and Oklahoma leave, and there was, talk out there that I think it's pretty well known that there were a lot of schools in the Big 12 that were wanting to jump to the Pac-12. And everyone was on board except for USC, because USC was on their way out to the Big East, right? And so with them denying having the teams join the Pac-12, and then now Utah's going to the Big 12, I think that's kind of where a lot of the well, you're supposed to come to us, we're not supposed to go to you type of attitude comes. It doesn't help that a rival in BYU is in there. That's one thing that Utah fans have kind of held their head high over BYU over the last 10 plus years, is we're in a P5, you're not. And now that we're in the same conference again, it's kind of like, oh, we kind of lose that bragging rights a little bit. And then lastly, I think, the way college football is going towards no more regional at all. Utah, the teams in the Big 12, a lot of them, we've never played each other. There's not a lot of history there. And so I think that's another thing to deal with it, right? When in the Pac-12, as I mentioned, we're playing those teams, 1 or 2 of them every year. So there's already some history there. And then with college football, I think everyone knows it's going to go to the super leagues eventually, right? 5-10 years. And so I think that's another thing, is like, well, why aren't we good enough to be in the Big 10 right now? Why do we need to wait and see if we can make it in 5 or 10 years? So I think that's where a lot of kind of where the emotions, everything's happening. I do feel, though, as we're getting closer to the season, that's shifting. I think kind of the drama behind the realignment, I think that's kind of fading away. And now fans are getting excited, like, we get to play some football soon. Utah fans are talking about making it down to the UCF game after Thanksgiving. If they weren't happy about it, if they weren't excited about the conference, those discussions wouldn't be happening, right? And so I think over time, as these teams, we play each other, as you guys mentioned, I think that's where those rivalries just naturally will happen. You look at Utah and ASU, they hate each other. Like, we do not like each other. And you wouldn't think that, but there's been some chippy games, and now that's a great rivalry. I can see that with other teams in the Big 12 over time, as you guys mentioned. It will happen.
Yeah, ASU didn't make friends with West Virginia either by their AD saying that they wouldn't go out and visit them at home. So that was pretty interesting. It reminds me a lot, just to put it in perspective for UCF fans, it reminds me a lot of our relationship with the directionally challenged school in South Central Florida. We don't even say their name here. They're affectionately or known as the Cows when it comes to UCF football. but it was kind of the same thing. And, they went off to the Big East. We were in competition for the Big East. Then they kind of kept us out of the Big East, and we went to the Big East. Now we've surpassed them in the Power 5 pecking order. Or Power 4 legitimately, come August when you guys join. But it's kind of that same thing. And I believe, is it not your AD's Mark Harlan, is it not?
It is. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So he was the Cows AD before he came to you guys. So
Yep.
I think there's some fodder there as well. Is he not the guy who said that he had his tires flattened and our AD had to drive him back out to Cowtown?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I will tell you, there's not a lot of love for him in Utah fans. So if you want to rip on him, go right ahead.
All right, good. All right, we will definitely do that. So, so hopefully that's the foundation for that. But yeah, you're right as far as that's concerned, and it's interesting that you say like how the the thought process has changed from the fan base, because I think a lot of the Big 12 folks with the last wave of realignment, everybody kind of said, okay, we're in this together kind of thing. And, we're trying to rebuild with OU and Texas going away. And there was almost after the initial panic when everybody was reaching out to the Pac and other conferences trying to find a lifeboat, they kind of settled in once they invited the four not new schools anymore, the four previous new schools. Everybody kind of settled in and supported each other, right? And UCF fans, I think it's taken a season for it to sink in for us to think of ourselves, because we've had a chip on our shoulder for so long, trying to get that national relevance and making sure that building that brand name and to finally get into a power league. That's been our goal all along, whether it be the ACC or the Big 12. So I kind of get the idea of like having made it and then having the wool pulled out, or the carpet pulled out from under you. So we had the same thing happen in the Big East. So, I think there's more parallels there, specifically with Utah and UCF's experience than others. A lot of the other power fans, they've been in the same conference for 100 years. So this is the first time they've had to deal with realignment. It's very interesting how that has been different. But I think there's a togetherness in the Big 12. And as long as, Utah kind of settles down, and you saw Utah Twitter kind of settles down and says we're not too good for this conference, I think they'll find a lot of kindred spirits, and it genuinely is a good football conference, better than I would say the Big Ten has been outside of the major brands. So a lot of parity and a lot of really, really good football.
And I will say, I think once the season starts too, there's a lot of passion in the Big 12. From top to bottom,
100%.
We didn't have that in the Pac-12. Like full honesty, I mean, you'd have Washington, Oregon, Utah. Pretty much those were the fan bases that had the following that talk all year. The other fan bases, they would come and go. If they're having a great season, you'd hear from them. If they didn't have so great, you wouldn't hear from them. You look at Cal and Stanford, and they'd be lucky if they get 1,000 fans up to their stadiums. USC, great program, a lot of history, but their fans were too cool a lot for football. Unless they're winning a national championship, then they didn't really talk to them. Same thing with UCLA. And so I think you got that passion from Arizona and Arizona State at times, way more in basketball for Arizona. But, since, the announcement and everything kind of going through, and then the social media, the way it is exciting and fun to kind of see the fan bases of the Big 12. And I think that's going to add to the experience, and maybe, kind of that arrogance on social media will kind of come down. We play each other. We get used to each other. I think that will help. I think time will tell.
Yeah, I do think that the Pac schools will be pleasantly surprised with the passionate fan bases, and they don't, and it doesn't matter. I mean, every fan base, if you're doing poorly for 5-6 years, there's going to be some apathy that sets in. But by and large, I mean, look at Kansas; they've been filling their stadium again. And their football has been pathetic for a very long time until recently. So, basketball is another thing. Big 12 basketball is a whole heck of a lot of fun. You don't have to be perfect in Big 12 basketball to make the tournament. There's a lot of really, really good basketball that's played in the Big 12. There's a reason it's considered the SEC of basketball conferences. And for us, it was a little bit different coming out of the AAC. It was a one-bid league. So if you had one or two games that went awry, the season was pretty much over. Big 12 basketball is a lot of fun. The fan bases are a lot of fun. They're very bought in. They will travel, and they'll fill your arena. If you're not filling it, they'll fill it for you. So I will tell you that's been a great experience for us as UCF fans. And if you weren't getting that where you were before, you'll definitely get it here.
No, and then we haven't even talked about that, right? Is the basketball point of view, what you're calling out. Basketball in the Pac-12 was bad, and there's no way to sugarcoat it. And I think, Utah basketball in general has been bad last several years. And I honestly think that the administration just didn't need to put funding into basketball because no one cared about it in the Pac-12. You'd have some great teams, Arizona, UCLA, but after that, it would fall down pretty far after those two. And so I have heard that, since this move, the athletic department, the university is now willing to support basketball way more than they have for the last 10 years. And I think that all has to do with the Big 12.
Yeah, I think
that's... Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's not surprising for me to hear that, Cam, because I mean it's when you enter a conference like the Big 12, from a basketball perspective, you've either got to make a decision to just be the bottom of the conference or to actually put the resources behind it to try to compete. And coming from the Pac-12, which has all those Power at the time Power 5 resources, and then you can choose how you want to allocate those resources. Sure, and of course you're going to focus on football, but when you're coming to a conference in the Big 12 that is just so stacked, and then on top of that, from a basketball perspective, not only Utah itself, but obviously bringing schools like Arizona along, into this conference, already making it even bigger. We're going to have a 20 game conference slate next year. It's just going to be a murderer's row of, I can't even count. Guys will tell you on this podcast the amount of times that I used the word gauntlet when we talked about our conference schedule last year, but also, in conjunction with that, the amount of times I said the word opportunity, because it's just wild. The amount of resume building games that you have ahead of you in every single conference, slate in the Big 12, I think is something that you're going to really see that, like, as you said, you're either going to, move forward with as much resources and passion behind it to try to make a dent in this juggernaut of a conference, or you're just going to accept that you're going to be one of the bottom teams, and it's kind of fight or die in that case.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the basketball scene in Utah has been bad. I mean, it's so bad they put curtains in the upper bowl to make it so it doesn't look as bad on TV. There's no fans there. It's crazy because you go Friday night basketball, no one's there. Saturday morning, it's women's gymnastics, and the place is sold out. It's rocking. It's crazy. So
Yeah, we don't have women's gymnastics. We can't afford that.
I
So
guarantee
we
things are coming down when you got like 4 top 10 teams coming into town in a row come this conference
yeah,
schedule.
see, it will be sick. It will be sick. And as much as I hate BYU, we call them the team down south. As much as I hate them, they're going all in on basketball.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I think that's kind of forcing Utah to do something. And as you said, I mean, it's all those teams in the Big 12. It's going to be bad for the first couple of years. It might be bad. I think Utah has one
listen.
road conference win in 2 years.
We went into the wow. Okay. Well, we went into this season. We were like, yeah, our max in conference wins is going to be 4, but the season turned out really well. But I think what should give you some hope. I mean, UCF was in a similar situation just because we didn't have the budget that a lot of people did because we were in the AAC making $9 to $10 million a year in TV revenue, right? So all the money was really focused on football. So we did get donations and stuff that helped out basketball a little bit. Now this year we've got we've got billionaires that are now investing in the basketball program, so it's a little bit different. But I think you should see a spike as far as recruiting is concerned in basketball with the Big 12 label, so you will have access to better talent. Number one. Number two, I do feel like if you look at UCF and what Johnny Dawkins has done this year, as far as recruiting is concerned, you'll have access to a higher level of transfer portal player than what you would have in the past. And we all know in basketball, it only takes a few players to drastically change the trajectory of a team. And if you can pay that ticket for them to hop on the Utah train, then you guys can get drastically better in a very short period of time.
Hopefully.
So, all right. So we talked a little bit about how they feel, how your fans feel about the Big 12. Can you give us a little bit about, a preview of what your expectations are for Utah football? I've been on the Big 12 huddle and talked about Utah and Cam Rising and the wide receiver, I can't remember his name now, that transferred over, and how I'm expecting a lot of good things from your octogenarian quarterback and the rest of your team. But tell us a little bit about how you're feeling about Utah football this year, recruiting, how it's gone, and your head coach in waiting for the second time kind of situation that you guys have got going on, because I don't know how I feel about that one.
Yeah. So I think Utah, I mean, honestly, this season, I think the sky's the limit. You can call me a homer. Last time this team was this healthy, they won back-to-back Pac-12 championship games, made it to the Rose Bowl. And so I think really this team, that's their goal. I mean, that's what they're capable of doing, staying healthy, granted. So I know a lot of Big 12 fans have been looking at Utah, coming in and saying, like, why are they ranked number 1 preseason? Look what they were 8-5 last year. Like, how are they number 1? And it's really because Utah just did not have a team last year. Their game against Colorado to end the season, they were on their 5th string quarterback. They had one passing attempt the whole game. So they just, last year was just completely out of this world as far as injuries go. And so I think with this season coming back, all those players come back, as you mentioned, Cam Rising coming for his seventh year in college. He is granted an 8th year, so he might have one more in him. But
I mean,
honestly,
is he getting his postdoctoral thesis? I mean, is it just red shirts? I mean, what's going on with him? Like, how has he got his 8th year? I'm assuming it's COVID plus, medical red shirts or gray shirts.
So he had medical red shirt last year, because he from tearing his ACL in the Rose Bowl the season before. So there was a court ruling that if you lost a year because of transfer, then you can get that year back. So he actually started at Texas. His first year of college ball was at Texas, and then he transferred to Utah, and he lost a year his first year at Utah. So that's how he could get his 8th year. I mean, I don't know if that's even in the cards. Like, who knows? But it's crazy.
You can get sponsored by Hoveround. You get some NIL money from Hoveround.
NIL has changed the world, especially for a team like Utah, because it would make sense to move on, get on with your life, maybe try at the NFL. I think the way Cam's looked at things is he can make more money playing at Utah than on a practice squad in the NFL. Or if he's happy or happen to make a roster and is like a third string quarterback, he's going to make more at Utah with that NIL. So that's been a complete game changer for Utah. Again, that's something basketball doesn't have, is the NIL. NIL full steam ahead with this football team. As I mentioned, Cam Rising's back at Brant Keithy, an All-American tight end, conference tight end. He sat out all of last year with an injury. He's back. Good golly. I mean, they had just injuries galore last year, and everyone, knock on wood's healthy. They had a great recruiting class. Going to bring in some depth. And really, because we saw this past season, a lot of youth played, but we all also saw, depth that played that isn't up to this level of football. And so that was a big push this offseason to identify those spots. Hitting wide receivers was a big, because wide receivers, there's an Arizona podcast that always says Utah is where wide receivers go to die, because Utah doesn't throw the ball. That is kind of changing now, and they're kind of getting some more talent in those spots. Utah's always going to be known for great defenses. But really, I think the sky's the limit for this team. If they don't make the conference championship game, there'll be a lot of disappointment, not only in that team, but the fan base as well.
So that's a good pivot point, since you talked about defense. The leader of that defense has been recently named head coach in waiting again. So there was a little bit of controversy that happened after the first time he was named head coach in waiting. First of all, how long do you think your head coach has left in him? Is this something where they're just paying him to keep him so he doesn't move on to another, team? Or is this truly a planned transition? And secondly, how do Utah fans feel about that, given all the controversy that happened the first go around with this?
Yeah, definitely. So with Kyle, I don't think I think it's going to be kind of a natural transition, to be honest with you, kind of over time. Not only when Kyle retires, he in his contract, he's going to stay as a consultant with the athletic department, so he'll still be involved. It is a way to keep Morgan Scally, and that's who you're referencing, the defensive coordinator. It is a way to kind of keep him on board here in Utah. The last several years, he has been requested for interviews at USC. I know a couple of years ago at Michigan, reached out wanting to interview him. So he has kind of been out there in the college football world for defensive coordinator jobs. Definitely a way to keep him in the program. As you mentioned, he had it under the prior athletic director in Chris Hill. There's the controversy with an inappropriate text with a racial slur that several years ago. And it's interesting, to be honest with you. There is a part of the fan base that is completely against it. There's a part of the fan base that wants to not just give it to someone. They wanted to open it up and see, who could we get? Kind of a national search. And then there's those that are in, kind of the the Morgan Scalley camp, and I think that's the majority of Utah fans. You know, something stupid happened. He's paid the price. He's done everything the university has set forth for him to do. The players have always backed him. You know, not one player, not one recruit left, at least publicly, over it. And I think that had a lot to do with it, especially around that time, is the players sticking up for him, why he was able to keep his job, take a significant pay decrease, and kind of do those requirements that the university set forth. I like it. I think just because Kyle Whittingham has built such a program over 20 years, and having someone that's been in it, that knows it, that can kind of keep that moving along, I think, to me, that's what I'm most excited about.
All right, awesome. Well, we've taken up 40 minutes and talked to Utah football for 40 minutes, so this was a good way to wet our whistle for the season, and hopefully we'll have you back for a very impactful Black Friday game. And I'm hoping that for both of us, because I'd love for it to be a game day Black Friday game. We've experienced one of those before, and it's a whole heck of a lot of fun when they come to campus. You know, for any team, whether you're the visiting team or the home team. Any parting thoughts as far as what UCF fans should know about Utah? Anything that you kind of want to pass along, and then of course let folks know where they can find your podcast and the College Huddle.
Yeah, so Utah fans, we're passionate, right? I mean, you see that on social media. We're passionate. We love our Utes. Every fan base has some crazy ones. Don't let
we have our share.
Don't let a minor few kind of, put a bad taste in your mouth for all of us. I promise we're not all that crazy. But definitely looking forward to that game in November. Holy crap. As I said, Utah fans, we're already talking about going. A great time right after Thanksgiving, make a vacation out of it. Like it's going to be rocking. That stadium, what you guys are doing, I love it. Love the passion. That's what I'm saying. The Big 12 is going to be so much fun with that fan passion. But you can hit us up on Twitter. You can follow us on iTunes, Google, Stitcher, all that good stuff at Utah Man Podcast.
Yep, and so one thing before Utah fans come to the Bounce House, there's a reason it's called the Bounce House. It does pounce. You're not going to have a structural failure, but if you set your beer on one of the steps, it will bounce up and down, because when Zombie Nation is playing, everybody's on their feet and yelling and screaming. We do, a large portion of our fan base, especially if you don't sit in the high level club areas, they're going to be on their feet most of the game, making noise. There's light shows. There's the music is pretty good. We finally got our AD to get rid of that one song that nobody really liked. They made a fun NIL donation contest out of it and said, hey, if we hit this level, we'll get rid of this song. Because our fan base is young, so they don't do the 60s, songs very well in our stadium. They were not happy about that. So, they're going to be hyped. They're going to be loud. The Bounce House gets loud. In fact, it gets louder than a lot of other big stadiums that you would think. Like I've been to the Shoe. It's quiet relative to how loud it gets at UCF. So it's going to be fun. There's a lot of fun tailgating. The folks are excited to have, I can tell you honestly that folks are excited to have Utah in the conference. We look at it as a challenge. We are also chip on our shoulder kind of fan base. So you should expect that. And hopefully we'll be talking about a big game come Black Friday. So thank you for joining us. Folks, check him out, especially as we run up the Utah Man. He's not the only Utah Man, by the way. But he is the Utah man that joined us for the podcast this week. Make sure you check his content out. Cameron's got, their podcast has got lots of good information as we kind of lead up to the game. So with that being said, thank you so much. Feel free to hang around. We're going to talk a little bit of UCF recruiting, so that might not interest you as much. But thank you for coming on. And what does Utah say? Do they say go Utes, or what do they say?
Yeah, they go Utes.
All right, so we'll say go Knights, charge on. Yeah, we don't like the U around here.
Hey.
It's a different one. It's a different one.
It's a little different. It's not that one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. There you go. All right, and yeah, we also do this for two reasons. One, because Texas got mad, and two, because the Cows hate it. So when our players did that on the basketball court at Texas, it kind of turned into a thing, and I'm excited to see the first time they try to make it into a thing in the SEC, because I think they're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
All right, Cameron, thanks so much. And go Utes, go Knights, and charge on.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. So that was very interesting. We got a lot of information out of that one. So thank you, Cameron, for joining. We've done a few others of these, and I don't think they've had as much information and knowledge about their respective football teams, but excited to have Utah in the fold. But let's go ahead and talk some UCF football. So I'm going to take a step back, and Alan, why don't you take us through the 7 new commitments of the 2025 class, and talk a little bit about being number 16 in recruiting as it stands today.
Well, what a difference a week can make. I mean, I think it was last week when we were telling fans to, calm down about the recruiting. We had just signed, one recruit that week, and then something happened this week. Something was in the water. Gus was in his bag, whatever you want to say. He got 7 new commitments to the 25 class, literally actually in the past about 4 days, not even a full week. Really just went on fire over the July 4th weekend. So we'll start. It was mostly defensive, 5 defensive players, 2 players on offense. The last 5, though, were all defense. So starting on offense, we got another 4-star receiver. His name is Waden Charles. He was actually the 3rd wide receiver commit of the class. So Gus is going heavy on the wide receiver core there. 4-star, guy that's 6'2", 185 pounds. So that's the second over 6-foot receiver we've got now as part of this class. From West Palm Beach, my neck of the woods here. He caught 21 touchdowns and over 2,000 yards through 3 years in his high school career so far. And he's also, like many of the recent recruits, rated as a top 50 player in the state of Florida, and actually a top 15 athlete in the entire country. As far as South Florida goes, there's a lot of really good players down here in South Florida, and he's actually rated as the 2nd best by average recruit score wide receiver in all of South Florida, including Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. So we got an absolute stud. He was actually committed to Miami for about 9 months before he flipped to us. So I believe that's the 2nd Miami recruit we flipped in this cycle. And just a lot of guys that are choosing us over Miami have offers from Miami. So this was out of the lot of 7 we got over the past week, this was probably it is the highest rated recruit of the last 7. And I think he's number 3 or number 4 highest rated recruit in the class. So really, really good one. Had 33 offers total, absolute stud. 4th 4-star of the class, 5th if you look at other outlets. So really big one. Then the next one was an offensive line commit, Andrew Stargell. One of the, I think it's only just the 3rd offensive lineman of the class. Well, believe it or not, that's actually the most offensive linemen that Gus has had in any individual class since he's been here. So before this, it was 2 was the most he'd ever taken in a single class. So now this is actually the most offensive linemen we've had in a single class. This is a guy that's from Roswell, Georgia, becomes the third commit from the state of Georgia, 6'4", 285 pounds. Had quite a few offers as well. A lot of schools in Georgia, like Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and then, quite a few other schools as well. So he's looking like, a good offensive line commit for us. Then as we keep going down, we know that UCF is Twin U, and we signed another pair of twins, the Desir twins. As you know, we have current twins on the roster, Damari and Jakari Henderson, and we have a long line of twins at UCF. So this is the next to join there, both 3-star edge rushers. They pretty much are both the same exact height and weight, 6'4", 240 pounds. It does look like Daryl is the higher rated recruit. He's number 70 in the state of Florida. And I hope I'm saying this right. Mandrel is number 94 in the state of Florida. They both played at Miami Norland High, which if you're down here, you know that Miami Norland is a top program, a top football program down here. They play against Booker T. Washington, Miami Central, a lot of the top programs down here. Real have a long line of D1 athletes that have come out of Miami Norland. So they obviously had offers from a lot of Florida programs, Miami, Florida State, our challenged friends from the West and USF. So they obviously chose us over them. So good to get some more edge rushers. As we know, a lot of edge rushers for us are going to be graduating within the next year. And we have a lot of just upperclassmen on the defensive line as a whole. Ricky Barber's upperclass and Malachi Lawrence is upperclass. So it's good to kind of get some youth in there. Then the fifth recruit or prospect of the week was another edge rusher, 3-star Tylen Lee. He's 6'4", 245 pounds, also rated as a top 70 recruit in the state of Florida. He's from Pace High School in Milton, Florida. This is a guy that also had a ton of Power 5 offers and even in a few in the Big 12 as well. He had a really monster junior year that kind of put him on a lot of teams' radars. He actually had 61 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles last season. So he has been someone that's really gotten on a lot of teams' radars. He also had offers from Miami, Kansas, Arkansas, quite a few schools. I think it was just over 25 overall. And he's rated as a top 35 edge rusher in the country and almost top 500 player nationally. So, obviously another good recruit on the cusp of being a 4-star guy. Then the sixth one we got is yet another defensive lineman, but this one is a defensive tackle, Christian Hudson, 6'1", 280 pounds, plays at somewhat nearby Mainland High. It's in Daytona Beach. We all know Mainland High. That's a really good program in Central Florida. They've won multiple state titles in their division. So that's a really good program. Great to have a pipeline there. We've had several prospects come out of Mainland High over the past few years under Gus and even a few under Frost. I believe that's where Adrian Killens went, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Yeah. So AK went there. And we actually even had a couple guys in the O'Leary era that came out of there. So Hudson is ranked as the number 64 player in the state of Florida. Like I said, had a lot of really good offers. And then last, but certainly not least, was a linebacker, 3-star Cameron White. He's a 6'1", 225 pounds, rated as the number 125 prospect in the state of Florida. He actually played 3 years, the last 3 years, but is transferring now for his senior year to Armwood. And we already talked about Armwood in the last couple of weeks. We've had a couple recruits that have played at Armwood. They're obviously one of the top programs in the state of Florida, and he's transferring there for his senior season. He's a guy that, also is a little, I would say, out of the 7 that we got, probably the most under the radar. Is not really nationally ranked, but obviously is pretty well regarded in the state of Florida. Most of his offers are in the Southeast. Hasn't really kind of made his name around the entire country yet. But nonetheless, Kenny Ingram, our defensive line coach really talked him up, said it's a guy that could play nose tackle. He could really play anywhere up front. They see him as a versatile type player. He's also a kid that is very versatile in the respect that he's also played on the offensive side of the ball. He actually played a little bit of offensive guard last season. So he primarily plays on the defensive line, but he can play on offense. Kenny Ingram envisions him as purely on the defensive side of the ball, primarily a nose tackle, but feels that he can move him around. So it's good to always have, a versatile player like that. And he's rated 112 as far as defensive line goes. So if you're tallying that up at home, we went from 11 commits to 18 essentially overnight, really in the last 4 days. And if you recall, last time we talked, I think we sat at number 45 or 46 in the country. Well, we've moved into the top 20 in the nation as far as our overall recruiting ranking, which is good enough for number 2 in the Big 12. But as we talked about how important the average recruit ranking, we had the number 1 average recruit ranking in the Big 12 in just our second full year there. So that's why we say don't panic about recruiting. I mean, it literally changed we moved up over 25 spots in a matter of 4 days, moved to the top of the Big 12, number 1 or number 2, whether you prefer overall versus average recruit ranking. And we still have plenty of time to move into the number 1 spot. But what I found interesting was, a lot of these commits, this class started out actually skewing towards offense, where most of the commits were offensive, but now with the 18 commits, 10 of them are defensive, 8 are offensive. So that really follows a trend. I was looking this over the past 4 years. Every class besides one has had more defensive commits than offensive commits under Gus Malzahn. And in one of the classes, it was a really heavy difference. So he really seems to be focused building up that defense and, getting that defense side of the ball a lot better. And then I guess the final, thing I'll point out is that 14 out of the 18 commits are hail from the state of Florida. So, he wasn't lying when he said that he was going to stay in state, put a fence around Central Florida, the state as a whole. Most of these guys are coming from Central Florida, Tampa, and of course, South Florida. Then we have 3 from Georgia and then 1 from Ohio. So that kind of sums up our recruiting, but great week, something we should all be proud of and excited about this 2025 class.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing that jumps out to me is we used to get excited when we had one top 100 recruit, right? So if you go down through the list here, number 47 in Florida, right? Next one is number 70 in Florida, number 67 in Florida, number 64 in Florida, number 125 in Florida. But to your point, someone who hasn't been recruited as heavily and hasn't had as much exposure. In the state of Georgia, you were talking about Andrew Stargell. We've had a ton of success with offensive linemen coming out of the state of Georgia. I mean, you think about Trey's teams, you think about some of the Georgia O'Leary teams, some of those guys all came out of the state of Georgia. So for Stargell, you mentioned he was a 3-star, right? But it's
correct.
NC State. Here's his offers: NC State, Ohio State, Boston College, Cincinnati. And I'm skipping over the G5s here: Georgia Tech, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Pitt, which I'm glad we got them over that. The Cows, I'm only mentioning because it's, we got them over them. And then Vandy. So, even for someone who's in the state of Georgia, still being and mentioned as a 3-star, still someone who, has some pretty highly rated offers. And then for Charles, I mean, this guy, yeah, he's going to be a stud, especially when we think about Braden and everything that we've got cooking there and the folks that we have on the field this year. I think Waden Charles is going to be one of those guys that's going to be a long-term play for us at receiver. So I'm excited about him. Christian Hudson too. And, I know you said top 20. Some folks look at 247, some folks look at Rivals. Rivals is typically more conservative than what 247 is with their stars, but according to Rivals, we have 7 4-stars in the fold and a top 16 recruiting class as it stands right now, and a lot of 5.7s, which are the borderline 4-star recruits as well. So this, to your point, we told you to hold on to your snuggies and to calm down, and they're coming through. And I expect us to take 23 high school recruits this year. So there's some more on the horizon, and we could take even more than that, depending on if some of these real big names swing our way. So at the end of the day, defense was definitely the priority. I think Gus feels good about where we are defensively with the transfers that we got. Another good size linebacker. We were talking about the size of linebackers recently. Now again, Trey, he says take off an inch and 15 pounds, but a lot of guys with good frame and good size now, and that will only get better. What do you guys think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting overall, the amount of high profile recruits that we'd be excited, as we said, to get these guys on campus for a visit, back in the day with kind of, no thought that we'd actually land some of these 4-star recruits and some of these highly rated, top 100 type recruits. And so being able to kind of round out, or I should say, being able to bring these guys in and get them to commit verbally, to build the future of UCF football. I think Gus and his staff have just done such a good job of that, and it just seems to be increasing and gaining that status every year. It seems like. Well, and Alan and I have talked about this on this pod in the past. It just seems like we, there won't be it'll be a short period of time from now where we won't be satisfied if we're like not a top 25 recruiting class nationally. And you asked us 3-4 years ago, if we were in the top 50, we were top 40, we were excited, like really excited, like best ever, right? Like, and it just seems now, it seems to be the amount of recruits that we're bringing in and the profile of these recruits that we're bringing in and then actually committing to us just seems to get to increase every year. And our standings and our expectations, of future classes will increase with it. And that's fine. I think that's just what makes the off season and looking forward to the future of UCF football that much more exciting, where, imagine what happens when we get the lazy river on campus and the gateways and the different things that we're looking to build infrastructure wise on campus. And then not only that, of course, the budget that we're going to get in the next couple of years from the Big 12. So it doesn't seem to be decreasing anytime soon, which just makes it that much more, exciting for us.
All right, Josh, I know you've been kind of quiet, and there's been a reason for that. Folks, Josh is battling a hoarse voice and some vocal cord challenges, so he's been more quiet than usual. But what are your thoughts on this, considering where we came from and how much of it you've seen since you are the oldest member of the podcast?
Yeah. I don't look like it, and I will tell you, my doctor, there's a term for it. It's called vocal abuse. So that's what I've been doing too. It's a little more than hoarse, but it was nice to have a scope down my throat today, and I'm still on the podcast.
See?
Back to,
pause, throw everything in there.
Scope. I'll put something in the chat, maybe in the comments. It's even worse than that. Listen, we are used to diamond minding. The old heads. If you have like a 4 in or 5 or a 6 in your age as the first digit, maybe even 7, you remember when we were excited to get a 2-star Bruce Miller. and right. And Bruce is great. Well, football playing specifically. We'll other stuff aside.
Concentrate on UCF career only.
We're concentrating on UCF football play alone. Like Rocky Ross was pretty good as a player when he was here. This is no longer the diamond mining you. We're in a whole nother atmosphere now. So when I've never been worried about this. I knew there are some people at the bounce house weekend that were probably silent commits and they would come over. But listen back to Outlet. Listeners, pause right now and go back about 15 minutes and just listen to Alan again. And in your mind, think about where you might have been a decade ago and listening to these things and the schools we are beating for these athletes. It is really amazing. So I love the fact that people want to come here, and I really I used to kind of care about the NIL and all that. If you want to come here because you're getting a small bag and you want to learn, or a big bag, that's fine. Welcome to the university. Maybe stick around for more than a year. That would be nice. Except for KJ, you're going to the NFL, we know. But it's just really amazing. And I can't wait to... I'm really hoping a lot of these recruits, first of all, sign. Second of all, they stay on campus and develop a little bit. That's really the thing I think is missing out of a lot of the name, image, and likeness era, is staying a little while and developing, because that's how you get to the NFL. That's how you get some of the big money, unless you're Cam Rising and you're like 52 years old. And maybe you're right.
I forgot to ask, and I wanted to ask this, is, post ACL, is he the Cam? I can't even say the Cam Rising of old, because he is still the Cam Rising, old Cam Rising. But is he the Cam Rising that was Cam Rising before the ACL injury? And I should have asked that, and I forgot.
We'll find out. I mean, will Cam Rising be the starting quarterback on November 29th?
Ooh, that's a big question.
So anyway, let's get out of the Utah talk and more about us. I'm really excited to see all of this, and I really hope that the team can unify and gel with these different parts and pieces quickly to do some amazing things in the football field. And, still, the educator in me, I hope they do well in school too, because eventually they will probably need a degree for something. Yeah.
If you hear the beep, make sure to back up. All right. I think that's good for the recruiting talk for football. There are still a number of recruits and a number of big names that are out there. I think some of these guys, we were in the mix for some pretty big names, and I hate to diminish the guys that we brought in, but some even higher rated 4 stars. We saw those folks start to go other places, and people kind of panicked. But these were the guys that were there no matter what. So it's a 1A, 1B kind of situation, and I can tell you that on every recruiting board, if you don't get the top level person that you were hoping for, you have someone that you feel really good about as the second option. They don't just recruit for the one that they want. So, all right, with that being said, and following on with the recruiting theme and the fact that basketball and hoops hasn't had that much to talk about this week, there was some excitement with a certain 4-star wing that joined us on campus this week. Ben, can you talk a little bit about Amari Allen?
So we have an official visit for Amari Allen. We're one of 3 official visits that he scheduled. He is a 4-star wing, 4-star small forward, for about 6'7", 180. So he plays a little bit bigger than that weight would really tell you. He plays a lot stronger than that. He's a very athletic guy. But he's originally from Green Bay, Wisconsin, but he attends IMG Academy here in Florida. which is obviously IMG is well known as a top 5 national sports academy, sports high school in the country. Plays a national schedule, as far as basketball wise. So he's should make the transition to college that much smoother for a guy like him. He's announced 3 official visits. As I've said, UCF is one of those. Minnesota and Wisconsin are the other 2. He's got offers from several schools, all in the Power 4 for the most part, and really Power 5 when it comes to basketball, including the Big East. But he's got offers from Georgetown, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Tennessee, Iowa, Penn State, Marquette, a few others, and then including, of course, those 3 that I just mentioned that he has scheduled these official visits for. He's listed as a small forward, but he's highly skilled in the open floor. As far as some of the highlight reels that I've seen, he's a type of guy that gets a rebound or a steal, and he's leading the fast break immediately, trying to push the ball up the court, either dunk on somebody. He's got a couple highlight dunks on Twitter that I've seen in some of these summer tournaments. But he's also a very good passer. Whether it be in the open floor, like on a fast break, like I just mentioned, looking ahead for his teammates, or in the half court trying to drive the lane, and he's got a really good vision inside the traffic of the lane, and he finds his teammates really well. So he seems to be a really plus passer. But he's also a capable shooter from the 3. Doesn't seem to display that as like his main part of his game, which I think is a good thing. He seems to be athletic enough and have the intention and skill to be able to score at all 3 levels. And if he's going to be on Johnny Dawkins' radar, he's a very solid defender, and he's displayed that in some of the short clips that I'm able to see of him online. Now, that's a lot to talk about a kid that is just taking a visit here. And so hopefully we wind up in the mix or we wind up being the school that he commits to. It's in the early stages of that. But, just like we just talked about with football, I think in the last month and a half, especially, Johnny Dawkins and his staff have displayed, whether it be some of the transfer talent that we brought in, and then obviously the reclassification of Mustafa Diem. We're really stepping up our game when it comes to recruiting, and Amari Allen is potentially another 4-star guy, another highly rated guy that we're in the mix for, where hopefully we'll land him and or many like him coming out of high school, and then we'll be able to fill in the way that we have with the rest of our roster through transfer portal year to year. But we do need to continue to try to push the high school recruiting hard, and I think that as we go into further and further into this, the most powerful conference in college basketball, along with one of the hottest recruiting states for basketball, I think that the future will continue to be bright no matter what. So hopefully he's a guy that will eventually commit to us.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just the IMG draw, right? Like I can't emphasize enough that getting any player out of IMG Academy when it comes to hoops is a big deal. They have the most money. They definitely move student athletes to IMG to get them to play there. The other thing is the other 2 official visits, Minnesota and Wisconsin. I honestly think we stand a pretty good shot against those 2. If it was other Big 12 schools, I'd be a little bit more concerned. Wisconsin has had decent basketball, but they never seem to get over the hump. I also like the fact that we have Mikey Williams and that noise around those players, and there's some other high-profile players that are on the team that I think helps out as well. So I like our chances. we wouldn't be talking about him if we didn't think we had a good shot at him. And he would play right into what seems to be the MO for Johnny Dawkins for this year for basketball and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota and Wisconsin are obviously on that list along with UCF because that's where he's from, right? He's from Green Bay. He's from that area. And then obviously, I guess, just through camps or through, through other relationships with IMG, we've been able to get on his radar here at UCF with IMG being, not too far. It's down the road on the way to Tampa there. I personally, I know a little bit about IMG because my nephew just committed to there. So he's going to play his last 2 years of high school football at IMG. So
humble brag.
Yeah.
Ben's family. We're an IMG family now.
No, yeah, it's an interesting journey.
Ben's getting bougie.
Well, I don't know if I'm getting bougie. I still kind of can't. I'm still in a little bit of shock with that.
Flag on the play. Flag on the play. Illegal bragging. Illegal bragging.
We're just giving you a hard time. He is turning a little red if you're watching the YouTube, but we're excited.
I'm gonna challenge that brag. I'm challenging that.
Brag. Yeah,
that's great.
No, they do. You're right about that. The resources at that school are really something. It's crazy.
Well, I will tell you this. I just noticed in our private chat what Josh put on his last thing, and considering what he was saying before, I don't think that's a good thing to bring up, but it's pretty hilarious. I'm excited for this kid, excited for your nephew. I don't think, unfortunately, UCF's going to have a shot, considering all of the people that are throwing money at him. However, he has been exposed to UCF games and UCF athletics for a long time, so hopefully that will sway some of that. All right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and pivot. Let me ask Alan. Pivot. Yeah, he can't do it very loud, and Trey's not here. So, thanks, Josh, for the pantomime that we've got going on there.
It's for the viewers, not the listeners.
Yeah, that's true. Exclusive content if you're viewing the YouTube channel. Exactly. I don't know if anybody wants to see that, but we're not going there. All right. So, Alan, do you have an oxymoronic stat of the week this week? I think he's having technical difficulties. Hold on one second.
Oh,
all right, try that again, Alan.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wouldn't call it oxymoronic, but obviously with the big week in recruiting, went right back to the recruiting stat, and I want to take a look at. We know that we have the number one average recruit ranking in the Big 12, but I wanted to compare it to the rest of the Power 4. And I looked at basically the other three conferences outside of the Big 12. I wanted to see how much higher or how many more schools did we have the higher average recruit ranking. And I was surprised to find that out of the ACC, SEC, and Big 10, we had a higher average recruit ranking than 13 Big 10 schools, which was the most of any conference outside, of course, ours in the Big 12. Then second was the ACC, where we had more than a higher recruit ranking than 12 of the ACC schools. And the SEC, it was only 4. But still, like Josh just kind of mentioned, when you think about
Josh, what did you just mention?
Well, he mentioned it like 10 years ago. If you would have thought everything that we just talked about recruiting, how crazy that would have been, to hear that we have more than basically Big 10, which is one of the two premier, conferences, that we have more than basically 70-75% of the conference, and then 12 ACC schools. It's pretty impressive. What we've been able to do here, and the class still isn't done. And just to name drop a few of the schools that we have a higher rating than Louisville, Iowa, Michigan State, Virginia Tech, Washington, who was just in the national championship game, Wisconsin, Arkansas, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Nebraska, just to name a few.
Yeah, that's huge. We've been kind of highlighting as these players have come on board and committed to us. We've been kind of highlighting and going through who all has offered them. And we're not in the AAC anymore, right? And I think also you mentioned the ACC, and I think that with the ACC, it just kind of shows to where we are relative to them as well. Sorry guys if there was a little disruption there in my conversation. There was a little back and forth going on the scroll. But anyway, the whole point with all of this is just saying we are at another level, and we're doing it in the Big 12 in a conference that a lot of people, not too long ago were saying is not as good as the Pac, is not as good as the SEC, is not as good as the Big 10, is not as good as the ACC. And we're doing it in that conference. And, I think it just goes to show that UCF is doing what we expected them to do. Give them the Power 5 label, allow them to recruit the state of Florida. 14 out of 18 recruits from the state of Florida. We're getting into South Florida again. There was always that, why aren't we recruiting South Florida trope for a long time, going back to the O'Leary years, right? And we had someone who was recruiting South Florida successfully, and, shenanigans ensued. But at the end of the day, UCF's in a good position with recruiting. Now, how we translate that onto the field, I think you heard the Utah man himself, Cameron, talk about the lack of depth that Utah had and how it's even a step up, and they're realizing it's a step up in competition coming into the Big 12. I think we proved that last year, and I think we're making a huge difference. And thank you for pointing all of that out, Alan, because I think that puts a lot of perspective on things. All right. So Alan's oxymoronic, or according to Josh, just moronic stat of the week has passed us by. Time for Josh to, shots fired with his funny fact of the week this week. Josh, what have you got for us?
This is way worse than Alan. So Alan's good today. So the ACT, did any of you take the ACT or the SAT?
Both.
I took both.
I took both. Yeah.
Both. Okay. I'll assume Alan took both. He's a smart man.
I said both. Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. My hearing and my voice. No, bro, you're good. Oh man. So the ACT is still out of 36. That scoring system still the same since I took it in the 90s. And the ACT test is the standard testing for high school students looking to get into college. So what is the average ACT score currently at UCF?
For athletes or the holes, everyone?
I will do everyone. I don't want to.
Is it still out of 36? Did you say?
It's still out of 36. Same as back in the day.
I'm going to guess 29.
I'm going to say my gut's telling me like 25.
Okay.
My gut says 32.
Jesus.
For incoming.
We think we're the Harvard.
For incoming freshmen, right? We're talking about incoming freshmen.
Incoming freshmen.
Yeah, I'm going to say, it may be 28, but I'm going to say, because I know our stats and UF stats are pretty closely aligned, as well as FSU's. And there is a difference since we have so many transfers that come in through the Direct Connect program. Our freshman, incoming freshman class, the SAT and ACT scores are much, much higher than what you would anticipate. And it's much more difficult to get into UCF than folks would anticipate as well. And certainly a lot harder than when I went to school there. So go ahead, Josh, without further ado. I have high expectations.
Okay. So you said 32, Roger? That was your final?
Yeah. What the heck?
Very high.
What the heck? I'm thinking 28 maybe, but yeah, 32.
Your instincts were better than your mind. It is 28.2, which is interesting. My question is, we were close. Alan would get that one. Curious.
So Alan is not so moronic, is what we've just established.
No. Here's the question. Did everyone get above 20.2 or 20? I don't think do the points when you took the ACT.
Above a 20?
Yes.
28? Yes.
Above a 28?
Yeah.
Oh, 28 or 20, I thought you said.
28.
I got a 28 on the dot.
Wow.
I don't even remember
I
what my
honestly don't
ACT
remember.
score
Yeah,
was.
I just turned 40 on Monday. I don't even remember the day. I don't remember.
Dude, I'm 43. Like, I
Oh,
don't.
Nova,
Nova was a 26.
See, it's interesting. My SAT score was hot garbage, but I got a 31 on the ACT. And I didn't tell UF that until I sat down with them. And they treated me like hot garbage until I told them that. And then I almost got offered a scholarship. So it's a pretty good score. And I then just walked. Maybe for another time,
Another humble brag on the Knighted Ones this week.
Don't ask me about my SAT score. It was horrible. But I will say this: one more humble thing. I'll give myself.
He's throwing the flag on himself, folks.
Yeah. So this is what I'll say. For another time, maybe we can have our worst time at another university during your high school, whatever years. I have some really bad ones about UF. I didn't even understand anything about UF in the 90s coming from New York. And everything people say about UF that I've learned, I've been down here, was pretty darn true when I visited them. So I that might be for another topic or segment.
Yeah, I don't remember my ACT score, but I only took my SAT score once, and I had like a 14. I want to say it was a 1440. I think I took it my junior year.
Humble brag, Roger.
3 now.
All right, throw the flag. There it is.
Has been thrown.
All right, yeah, but I'm gonna have to go back and look and see if I can find my ACT score now because you've got me curious. Yeah,
text my mom.
I know the SAT score I felt was easier for me than the ACT test. I don't remember why, but
I flew through the ACT. I thought the SAT was a piece. I think it depends on what type of brain you have, like mathematical, analytical. I think I had more of a bad testing math brain, but a pretty good testing history, language brain.
Yeah, all I know is I remember I took it my junior year and I was like, this is enough to get me into any engineering program I wanted. So I'm good. I don't need to take it again. So that was like, I took the ACT because they made us take the ACT. Like I was in Department of Defense schools and they made you take both of them your junior year. So I just took them both and I was like, I don't care. I got enough to get in what I need to get in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 14 anything is still solid. I think it's solid today. They kind of did some of the formulas. So you're good.
Yep. One more humble thing with Roger. Okay. Now that we've shown that we're all nerds and that Ben has lost his memory at the age of 40, let's go ahead. We did wish you a happy birthday last week, though.
Yes, you did.
All right. So real quick question. We're at an hour and 28 minutes. Did we have anything else from other sports that Alan doesn't watch? I don't think so, right? I think that was it.
I put one thing on there for things I don't watch.
Okay.
It was the track and field star. Sorry, I forgot her name. The one with the R. Yeah. She got Big 12 Scholar Athlete of the Year.
Congratulations to Renaya Jones. Awesome representative of UCF for sure.
Did great.
All right.
As well.
Yes. So that's going to wrap the show. We're a little early this week, a little bit lighter on content than we normally are. Josh conveniently lost his voice and didn't talk as much, so I'm going to blame it on that. Trey Neal, want to celebrate him on a new role that he just took on. So congratulations, sir, on that. We hope to have him on the show here pretty soon. Remember, I didn't give the shout out to the listener love. I got to give a little listener love. So we just eclipsed another milestone for followers on YouTube. And it seems to be picking up a little bit. So folks, remember to subscribe and to like and to share the content on your socials if you love what we do as much as we do. And even if you don't love it, just share it so that people
anyway
that it actually is. So that being said, just make sure to keep doing that for us. Thank you so much. We are our listeners, believe it or not, 4% of our listeners are from Canada. So we've got more Canadians tuning in than ever to the podcast side of things. We appreciate all of the support. Please make sure that you give us any comments. We got a few comments this week we interacted with as well. Give us your ideas and what you think about the craziness that we talk about. We appreciate everything that you're doing and supporting us. And go Knights and
charge on.
All right.
Put in a curling segment. If we're getting a lot of Canadians, we can start a curling segment. That would be